You can move, just don't touch your mic. It's fine. Just don't touch your mic. That should be easy, right?
Now I want to touch it even more.
I know, but you know what? Have a drink.
Yay!
Hey.
Oh, okay, so let's see if I can recognize by the glimpse of the label I saw. You're drinking Mum Napa?
Yeah, and it's so boring that I'm drinking the same thing that I drank last week. But you know,
it was rosé last week.
That's right. This is Brut Prestige.
Yes.
So
yes.
I actually wanted to get a bottle of like proper champagne, but this whole week I've been a little bit off my schedule because I was in the Sparks verse on Monday and Tuesday. What are you drinking?
Well, you know, I too kind of went with the boring La Marca Prosecco, which is a tasty Prosecco for $15. But I was thinking two things about the sparkling wines. First, with this one, I remember when this kind of came out in the Midwest market and you were back visiting, and I think we were up visiting Beth in St. Paul, and went on like a wine run, and she was like, no, you guys, no, trust me, this is an affordable, really drinkable Prosecco. And yeah, and it's now pretty popular here in, at least in the Midwest.
I agree. No, it's popular here too. I did actually have a quick look in at the Proseccos, but I needed something that was chilled because right before this, I went swimming because it's really nice and warm. I'm sorry to say to all of our listeners in colder climes. And I mean, it's like a heat wave here in Los Angeles. So it was actually warm enough to go swimming. So I went swimming with a friend right before this. And yeah, just made it.
Just cheers. The other thing another wine talk that I wanted to bring up was
wine talk.
Welcome to Wine Talk.
Welcome to Wine Talk.
I think you made the joke last week about that your Mum Napa wasn't really champagne. And
yes.
Well, like that's such a fun, like my cousin or my niece was like, it was laughing about it because she's like, yeah, we know, like my generation gets that. We know, you don't have to tell us. And so like she's in her early 20s. And so this was then, I think this was like the Christmas before the Capitol riot, we were having this conversation. Mm-hmm. And then right after the Capitol riot, Tanya sent me a meme that said, it's only a real coup if it's from the region of France. If it's not from the coup d'etat region of France, then it's just sparkling white racism.
Yes, I have actually seen that meme. I've seen that meme. I was actually thinking about that, the whole méthode champenoise, which, you know, here's all I'm going to say. Champagne is great. Good champagne is fantastic. You can get a lot of excellent sparkling wine from a variety of regions. So, you know,
I just downed my glass while you were saying that.
Well, I did half of mine.
The glasses are just so small. The other thing it was, well, the other thing that made me think of with the if it's not champagne, it's from the Champagne region, is Joe and I have a running joke about the Marie Antoinette's like let them eat cake, you know, quotes. And he's like, you know, there's always that one guy who can't let it go. She didn't really say that, you know. So every once in a while, anytime we bring up Marie Antoinette, one of us will hold out. We'll look at each other and be like,
by the way, it is almost certainly a dude. Like, this is the same person who will be like, you know, we're not actually a democracy, we're a republic, blah, blah, blah. Or this is the same person who'll be like, let me explain to you why the Electoral College is really important, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's a real man thing. No offense. Hashtag not all men we know. But it's usually, yeah.
You know, she didn't really say that though.
She didn't actually say that. In fact, that's kind of a gross misquotation. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
She was really affirmed.
We know.
So it's not champagne. It says right here it is a dessert wine.
It's funny you mentioned Greece because I have a Greece reference that I'm going to allude to in my conference. I meant concert, but in a way it was a conference of Sparks Obsessives.
Yes. We have a very special episode of Sparks and Sparkling this week because why is that, Miss Melanie?
Because I went to the Spark show and it was so nice. I went twice, which was great because the first night I went with my husband and it was very fun. But then he was like, when the next day I was like, I should go again. Actually, it was amazing. I mean, why not? They're in town. I'm in town. Just do it. Why not? And he said to me, but I don't understand why you'd go a second night when you saw them last night. And I was just like, you don't get it. You don't get it, bro.
Me at all.
You don't understand.
So Melanie, you went to see the Sparks, their first concert since COVID.
I went to see the Sparks show. It was amazing. I was so excited. I had tickets for Monday. Monday was so much fun that Tuesday morning, I thought to myself, hey, I could go tonight. Why not? I'm here. I bet I could get a ticket.
Meanwhile, I was texting you like bad idea, Bear, like do it, go for it.
No, I believe you said ride the wave. And I was like, man, Amy knows me so well. Ride the wave. You're right. I am going to ride this freaking wave. And off I go. And honestly, the second night for me was better. We'll talk about what I think. Do I think the second night was better for the? They were both amazing performances. Of course, it's Sparks. They won't let you down. Okay? Like I feel like if Sparks was gonna have a bad show, like knowing they weren't ready, knowing they could do a little bit more practice, they would probably just cancel the show if possible. Like they really, I feel like they aim for excellence when they're performing. It's the whole like we're not going to hear their bad songs because they won't ever allow them to be released. It's the same with the show. So it was really great, and actually I'm very prepared to talk to you about it.
Tell me about like the first night. Tell me a little bit about the audience and the vibe. And you were showing some merch that you got. I definitely want to look at that. Why don't you hold that up again? Show us that.
I got you. We're going to talk about it. I feel like night 2 was even better than night 1. For me, it definitely was. And we're going to talk about the set list. So I know there are people out there who don't want to know the set list because they want to be surprised. But basically, some people are like, oh my God, I need to know every single song they played. Other people are like, please don't tell me because I want surprises when I go to see them. So we are going to talk about it. I'm going to say something about the set list right now, and then I'm going to kind of talk a little bit. I'm actually going to talk a bit about the set list, and then I'll sort of talk about the lead up to it. So the first thing I'll say about the set list is that you could kind of call it the Sparks Brothers set list. Like it seemed to me very influenced. I'm sure it was not a seam. It was very influenced by the Sparks Brothers documentary. And while we are on that subject, I feel like we need to give it up for Edgar Wright. Okay. Like, first of all, there would be no Sparks and Sparkles without Edgar Wright. There'd obviously be Sparks, but there wouldn't be this podcast. Okay. So that would be really sad, you guys.
So Edgar, you gotta really appreciate how you influence us to create this.
Exactly. And right. but actually what I really want to say is that Sparks, without that documentary, they would obviously still be immensely respected and hugely influential. But what Edgar Wright did, and I have read some interviews with him where he kind of talked about, I think he saw them, and if I'm getting these facts right, I'm not 100% sure, but he saw them, I want to say in 2017, he was with another director, and Edgar Wright said to this guy, you know what this band needs? They need a documentary. That would make them that would make them as big as they deserve to be. And I believe the other director said, you should do it. And he was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, but I feel like he actually did succeed, because I hear all the time that someone saw the documentary and now they're really into them. And that's kind of, I knew about them, but I certainly wasn't at this level of obsession beforehand, and it's been really fun. That's my take. And I back to the set list, I really feel like the set list is the song list that Edgar Wright and the Sparks Brothers built. So anyway, I will get into it. I will get more into detail with that. So if you don't want to be spoiled, I will kind of give you another warning about that. Edgar Wright was at that show.
This is your first warning. You get 2.
Oh, Edgar Wright was at the show too.
Oh,
I knew he would be. I knew he would be. I mean, come on. I thought to myself, if I lived in London and I had the money and the freedom to travel to LA to see Sparks, and I was a Sparks super fan to the extent that I made a whole documentary about them, would I go to the show? Yes, I would go. So he was there, although I also suspect because both nights Russell thanked Edgar Wright. They took a moment in the show to just talk about the Sparks Brothers movie and Annette, but to thank Edgar. And of course, because he has really given them a wider audience, and it's kind of like something that I think I said on a previous episode. Like, I think when you create art of any sort, you always have this conflict between your desire to create something that's really coming from your heart and your soul, but then you want people to appreciate it. And ideally, you would like to be able to just do that, which means people have to buy it, or in some way there needs to be a monetary exchange so you can keep doing it. Yeah. So I know, or at least I think, obviously I don't know, I'm not in these guys' head, that there probably has always been that, for as there is for so many artists, that conflict between wanting to have commercial success but really wanting to stay true to your art, and knowing that that might not be the most commercially successful route. So anyway, I've spoken a lot. Any comments?
No, I mean, I figured this episode was going to be a lot of you talking to me, drinking and nodding and imagining how wonderful it was.
I'll talk about night 1 first. I went
at the very beginning. Okay. How did it go parking your car?
1973. I was born. My childhood was typical. Luge lessons. That has here nor there. I actually got an amazing parking spot, which, you know, as someone who lives in LA, this is pretty important. And in fact, the first night, so the concert was at the Walt Disney Concert Hall in downtown LA, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about that building. It's a beautiful Frank Gehry designed building. So Frank Gehry is a very famous architect. If you've ever seen the Bilbao Guggenheim, it's quite a famous building. So we thought, hey, let's leave real early, then we can park and we can kind of enjoy stuff, which was a genius move. That gave us time to park the car, and then we walked down a gigantic hill to the Redwood Lounge and Grill. So the food at this place was pretty average, but it was like a cool little dive bar that I would love to take you to. The cool thing about it is that it's pirate themed. So there's some sort of pirate thing going on. It's not entirely clear what the pirate theme is. It could be pirate burlesque, because there was a lady who was doing some sort of posing in front of a pirate themed background on a stage. Pirate burlesque, it was very confusing. Was it burlesque? Was it some sort of artsy posing? I don't know, but I did think that the lads in the band would approve of its bizarre strangeness. And speaking of that, boy, were there Sparks fans there. Not only were there a lot of Sparks fans there, but they had a jukebox. And I don't know about you, but I've personally spent a lot of time in bars, and I'm going to say that the jukebox not always playing the songs you want to hear. A lot of tired old crap that you don't necessarily want to hear for the 80 millionth time. I'm looking at
I will say this,
Alabama.
For the folks in our audience out there, obviously Melanie and I have known each other a long time before digital jukeboxes came around, whatever. But Melanie has always had the skill too. Even in a pretty divey bar with a crappy jukebox with just a limited selection, she can pick awesome stuff. And so, hats off to you, madam. She's always been good at that.
Cheers.
I also enjoyed watching you and your brother jukebox it off last time we were in Wisconsin, because I was like, you're so siblings.
Yes. And my brother Ryan has a wonderful jukebox theory, which is never play a down song on the jukebox at a bar. Save it for at home. You're having a good time. But my point is, like, man, this jukebox was playing one banger after another. Why? Because there were tons of Sparks fans in there, so they're all music obsessives. Unfortunately, there was only one poor lady working the entire bar, so it took a while to get things done. But once we were done, we walked up the gigantic hill. Not that it made an impression for me. And then we got into the merch line. Los Angeles is very strict about COVID restrictions, and so like we had to make sure we had someone checking that we were triple vaxxed. And when we were, I definitely wanted to get merch. It took a while to get in there, so I wish I was gonna tell you, while we were waiting, a security guard told us to move over to the side, and like everyone's like, okay, yes sir. And the guy behind me joked that he hadn't seen a group of people this compliant at a rock show since he'd gone to a Weird Al gig. So that really made me laugh. We were, yes sir, of course, officer, we will do it.
We like music for the intellectual impact that it has on our lives.
Kind of.
We like following rules too.
Well, I like breaking them too, but I know when to hold them and when to fold them. Anyway. I wish that I kind of felt like I had to rush the merch because we waited so long and then you wanted to get in there. But for those of you who are interested in what merch they've got, they had new shirts. They had new posters, which I wish I had known this. Apparently the posters they had were signed and dated.
Oh.
So that's super cool. I'm going to check to see if they have them when we go in Chicago, because we're going to Chicago. But that's really cool. I got a shirt with the classic Sparks logo in blue because I had really wanted one of those, but for some reason, Sparks HQ merch comes from the UK, so then it's going to take you forever to get it if you are in Los Angeles, or you could buy a bootleg, but I just don't feel good about that. I already have my own feelings about doing this podcast because I don't want the guys to think I'm just leeching off them. I'm not. This is like this is a love worship thing. I hope you know, like, worship's the wrong word, but it's an homage. I just want you to know that. Anyway, I have not felt good about buying a bootleg because I would rather give the money directly to the band.
You've always been, enough said. We obviously are not playing, as much as we would love to play clips of the music on our podcast and on the YouTube, video version, we don't have permission to do it. And so we'd rather just put a link to the Sparks sponsored YouTube site, sites.
One day, gentlemen, call us, okay?
Yeah.
We'll talk, we'll meet, you guys can have sushi or whatever.
I can talk to your lawyers.
Yes, yeah, whatever works. Anyway, I don't want to buy a bootleg, so I got that. They also had some really charming things, like a beret with Sparks in multicolored.
That's awesome.
I sense someone might be buying one in Chicago.
I hope they're still on sale.
And as I said, this amazing coloring book, although I've noticed, I don't know if you Ron doesn't have a mustache.
Bring it close to the camera so we can see it.
I'm trying to help. There, look.
Wait, no, he's got a mustache in the top. Well, but I see what you're saying.
But not here. Look, hold on, not here.
Oh.
But then, of course, he's a blonde there, so who knows?
So,
I mean,
there's an amount of willing suspension of disbelief. You have to realize it's a cartoon book.
Right.
So that's pretty awesome. So for the audio, Melanie, what was it? It was a Sparks coloring book, right?
Yeah, it's
It
a
had
Sparks
featured
coloring
their
book.
album covers.
Album covers, a couple promo photos from all eras, so that's pretty cool. They also had some CDs and vinyl, but unfortunately I can't tell you anything about the quality or issue of those because see episode 1 of the show. I'm not really a collector in any of that stuff, so I was in a rush and I just didn't really look at it. I was like, oh, hey, cool. Plus they were playing Sparks music in the gift shop and I was actually distracted by that.
I could see getting kind of distracted with that. And then you're like, oh, I hope they play this one. I hope they play this one.
I was thinking exactly that. Plus, they played Good Morning from Exotic Creatures of the Deep, which is probably my favorite song from that. And so I was slightly distracted by that too.
Were these the posters that you found out later?
These
were
are the
signed?
posters. And they had signed posters there for only $25, which like, wow, I wish I had known. You know what? Honestly, I just didn't want a giant ear hanging up. But you know what? I'm going to make that sacrifice for art.
I suffer for my art.
Yes.
Yeah, and then this is the shirt you got. It is a
yes,
shirt.
Yes, and the back has all their tour dates, which honestly I wish it didn't. I you know what? I just want the logo. I don't need. I'm not in high school anymore. I don't need to brag that I went to the show. But that's me. That's me. That's not everyone.
Yeah, because we're doing a whole episode about it.
I'm not bragging. I'm doing it for the fans. I'm doing it for people
I'm doing this for you.
Actually, I don't feel like I'm bragging, but
you're not. I was totally teasing. That was completely a joke.
No, but you know how in high school, like, did you do this? Like the night after the big In Excess show, everybody is at school in their In Excess shirt, showing that they went, or like, ooh, Metallica was in town. Check it out. I've got the Metallica shirt. You know, I was like that for sure. Even if I didn't go to the concert, I'd find someone who went and be like, hey, get me a shirt so I can be cool. But now I just want to say, yay, Sparks. So I want now to sort of bring us into the stage. Like basically I'm taking you on a journey. After, you know, the pub and walking up the hill and getting everything, we finally went through merch and we went and got our seats. We were up in the terrace. We were pretty high up, but honestly, the arrangement of the Walt Disney Concert Hall is that carousel style where every seat is potentially pretty good. So if you've ever been, to me, the thing it reminded me of was the Royal Albert Hall in London, which if you have ever been, and the Royal Albert Hall is much bigger, but it is also circular and is kind of set up so that like the seats sort of go gradually up. So everybody has a pretty good view of the stage, which the Walt Disney Hall was like that, but on a much smaller level. So we were pretty far away, but you could still see fairly well. And now, Amy, earlier you asked me about the age of the concert goers.
Just, and you know, the vibe. Yeah, but I guess the age, because yeah.
The vibe. Okay, so like there's all this talk that Sparks has, you know, fans of all ages. And I do believe that's true. I do believe that is true. But I would say the majority of the people at this show were certainly of a certain age that I am as well. Like, I mean, there were a lot of middle-aged people there, I would say. And you know what? Hey, Ron and Russell are in their 70s. So I feel like that's fine. But what I will say about those people was that they're the cool people. Okay. There were lots of really great outfits. Lots. There was a woman who had, I called her Funky Jean Skirt Lady. She had like this really cool long skirt that was almost like a hoop skirt with stripes. And it was like the tops of jeans, like, you know, the button bit. And then she just had lots of those going down. It was very cool. Lots of bright leopard, lots of beret action. Later, I saw someone who had made an entire outfit inspired by one of Russell's 80s suits. Like, I don't know if you've seen that suit that has a little cacti. Yeah, very glitter. Have you seen the one that's like yellow and it's got cacti on it?
I think so. I'm just not coming to my mind right now, but yeah.
Somehow she had a whole outfit planned around that. But far, far better than that was a group of ladies who, remember you mentioned Greece. They had sort of Greece style black satin jackets on that were black, and then in the back in white in cursive they said Team Ron. I mean, they looked like a very cool girl gang. I'm sure if the lads saw them, they were impressed. Here's what I think. What I think is that they look pretty awesome. And if there isn't a group of ladies ready to make some bright satin, I feel like it has to be bright colors because Russell, bright satin jackets that say Team Russell on the back, there really should be. And then there needs to be a rumble.
It could be a musical rumble.
Yes, I was about to say not a real rumble. Okay, more of like a Sharks when you're jet all the way. More of like Sharks and Jet, or maybe homage to the famous Mods versus Rockers battle that happened on Brighton Beach in the UK in the early '60s. But they were pretty cool. So.
Oh, yeah. I love it. How fun.
Yeah, totally. So now I'm going to get into the concert just after 8. So they were playing like this very nice choral music. I'm assuming if they play that when we go see them together, you're going to really enjoy that. You know, you're going to enjoy the whole classical thing. I'm going to be like, yeah, okay, let's get to the Sparks. But that was quite nice. Around 8, they cut that off, and then you could sort of feel this frisson of excitement.
Watermelon, great watermelon.
Exactly. And then when they finally open, there is a giant organ in the Walt Disney Concert Hall, which Ron walked out to, and they had like red lights, and then Ron was wearing all black. He was like just right in the middle of this gigantic organ playing the opening bars to Number One in Heaven. It was very cool. Very, very cool. I gotta think that when they first went into that space and started rehearsing, at some point someone saw that organ and was like, oh man, yeah, we gotta play that.
Maybe that's why they picked this location.
Could be.
That's very cool.
Could be.
What a cool design for an organ too.
I know. You know, and that, I feel like, again, that's like totally the Sparks vibe, like very theatrical, very over the top, very dramatic. It totally worked. And, you know, I did think to myself when they came out and they started to play, I wondered what was going through their heads about playing there, because I'm sure they played a lot of, as they say in the UK, spit and sawdust venues back in the early days. And certainly in the 80s here, these guys seem to have been like on an amusement park tour. Like I've heard all these people say like, oh, hey, I saw them at Magic Mountain. I saw them at Disneyland for grad night, which if you don't know what grad night is.
Show and Sparks.
Yes. There is, at Disneyland does this thing called grad night, where like they keep the place open late for people who are graduating from high school, maybe junior high. I don't know. I didn't grow up in California, but what I'm going to tell you is that my impression of it is, if you are attending grad night as a grad, it's probably fucking amazing. But if you are at Disneyland and it's grad night, it's horrible. It's like hell, because there are all these teenagers running around. But anyway, I have to feel like it was quite a moment for them. So I'm going to get into the set list now.
Haven't they played some fairly significant gigs and some, like, I thought with the Franz Ferdinand stuff, they had some bigger.
Oh, absolutely. That's actually not my point. My point is, you know, there's playing a stage by the Loop-de-Loop at Magic Mountain. And then there's playing the Walt Disney Concert Hall, which is the home of the LA Philharmonic. It's a
Yeah.
very
Yeah, that's
different
true.
vibe in
Very
terms of respect
prestigious.
and prestige. Yeah.
Yeah,
And of course they deserve it. They've earned it.
that was my
So so now I'm gonna start getting into the set a little bit. I don't know that I'm going to talk about every single song, but I made a list of all the songs. I wrote down the set. I very carefully wrote down and dedicated.
You were
Wrote
our
down
intrepid Sparks reporter on the scene.
Melanie Johnson Cave, girl reporter. But I wrote down all the songs, and I kind of wish. Well, afterwards, I found out that like 8 million people also published the set list. I was like, I could have just waited, but oh well.
No, that's so great. That means like there were so many people who were excited about it and really into it.
Yes. So they started with So May We Start from Annette. Have you seen Annette yet? I haven't.
I have not.
So I feel like the next time we're together, we're going to, because Rob keeps saying he's going to watch, but he doesn't really watch it. I feel like next time we're together, we're going to sparkles it up, and then we're finally going to watch it.
Which, I mean, we're going to be together in what, 4 to 5 weeks, because you're coming here to Chicago, and we're going to see Sparks here in Chicago. So there'll be another episode, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I will be very interested in if they change the set, because if you recall, I said it was very much the Sparks Brothers set. So lots and lots of music that was featured in the documentary. They started with So Maybe Start, as I said, but then they moved into some 80s classics. They played Angst in My Pants, which actually has recently really grown on me. The whole Angst in My Pants album has really grown on me. It's one of their albums I would call a grower. It's a grower and a shower, actually.
Yeah, I like Angst in My Pants a lot. I think that's a great song, and everything I've heard and seen from the album I've enjoyed. But I was also really, I lean more towards the 80s Sparks. So
I love it all, actually. Yeah. I love it all. I think there are gems in every era, actually. And by the way, speaking of later times, Sleater Kinney does an excellent cover of Angst in My Pants. Just go ahead and YouTube that, baby. You're gonna. I think
I have watched it. Yeah.
Good. It's good. In fact, their cover is what made me really like it, because I don't know. And sometimes I feel like that happens with songs. Like, it's a good song, but you just don't appreciate the original version. Then you hear a cover and you're like, hey, this is really good. That's how I felt about Angst, but it's great. Anyway, they played that. Then when they played Tips for Teens, yay. I'm just going to say I lost my freaking shit. I was so excited, and I was dancing like a maniac, to the point that my husband was like, calm yourself, which is why I had to go the next night and sit closer among the Sparks obsessives so I could dance crazily, and everyone be like, yay, we're all dancing. Because where we were sitting, since we were so high up, like, you always, if you've ever been to a show, I've been to a number of shows like this, where like it's a sort of more classical venue, and the seating is not really designed necessarily for rock concert going. Yeah. And so if you're in a higher up seat, you might feel like a little bit, yeah, you feel afraid you're going to fall over if you start dancing. Yeah. And sometimes they have security that won't even let you dance. So like there was a little dancing, but it was mostly chair dancing up in the terrace. But you could see that down in the orchestra area, like people were really getting down, and I was just very envious and wanted to be there, which I was the next night.
So you made it happen. Like so many things, Melanie just makes it happen. So then the second night, when you were, where were you sitting the second night?
The second night, I had amazing seats. I was like maybe 7th row in the main orchestra area. So I was very close, and that was great because, concert going it can be an intimate thing. It's a really, when you think about performance, there's the aspect where you are just experiencing it. There's the aspect of the band or the performer playing and them just doing that on their own. But then there is an interaction between both groups. The second night, because I was closer, felt much more intimate, because I could see the band more clearly, so I could see their emotions. or at least what I thought were their emotions on their face. One thing that occurred to me when I was watching the show was how happy I was to be at a concert again. I haven't been to a concert since October 2019. I saw Courtney Barnett, who, I mean, she was awesome. I saw her in a really small space and it was great. But the second night, I also think the second night, they put on a great show both nights. But I feel like the second night they were maybe a little bit more relaxed, because even for them, it had been quite a long time since they had done a show like that. And if you remember,
I was going to say the second night in the same venue, like you have all your technical shit worked out. I mean, I know, like, because you don't get that much time to rehearse in spaces like that.
right.
And I don't know how many, like, so what was their backup band setup like? Like, what was, or not backup, but what was the band, the full band setup like?
What do you mean?
Like drums, keyboards.
Yeah, they had
was
drums.
There a gong player? Anyone on timpani? I don't know.
They had drums. They had guitar. They had bass. They had a second keyboard player. I think that's it for the main band. I apologize to any band members that I might. I don't want to forget, because they were all great. They were all like amazing. They were so good. I felt at the beginning of the show, because like Russell did sort of your typical concert patter with the hey, how's it going? Hello, Cincinnati. Yeah, or whatever. But
how many of you are wearing your masks?
Woo! Well, we all were, because it was Los Angeles. So, but that felt a little more like, oh my God, I hope this works. Like, and it was definitely delivered much better than that. But I felt a little bit of that shakiness in the delivery on the Monday, and I felt much less of that on Tuesday. Actually, Tuesday when they started, they had some sort of, I think, a sound issue right at the beginning of the show. And in fact, this was just kind of cool, because where I was sitting, you could see the shadow of Russell about to come out on stage. Like and actually the person I was sitting next to, we were like, I think that's Russell. And yes, it was, but it was taking so long. Like they had kind of started that opening bit of, so may we start? And I'm like, what is going on? And the person next to me said, oh, I bet they have a problem. And then suddenly all the sound kicked in and we were like, oh, sound problem. But you know what? That shit happens. We know that. I mean, like, if you've done any sort of stage stuff, you know that crap happens.
Got the anticipation going.
Yes, and actually, to be honest, I thought it sounded all right without that, so it was fine. But
the person in the orchestra seats.
What was that?
I said the person in the orchestra seats. Oh no, that's awesome.
But I just felt they were a little bit more relaxed. But anyway, the other thing I will say is that you would really, to a large extent, not know that these guys were in their 70s. Okay. Like, I'm just going to say Russell is 73 years old. When my grandmother was 73 years old, she needed a cane and assistance to walk everywhere, and she had to have dialysis 3 times a week. Now, granted, she was not a well woman, but Russell is the same age, and he was like bouncing on that stage like nobody's business. Like, he was really giving it his all, and it was very impressive. So
that's awesome. Well, they talk about that in the documentary, that at least what I took away from his point, because they showed him at the gym, is that he really understands the physicality of how he wants to make music and how he wants to be able to move and what it takes to continue that. And you know, one of the things I was curious about, because we've talked before about his amazing vocal prowess, and you know, as you age, your voice does change, your larynx or your vocal folds sometimes change, and sometimes you develop a lower range or a higher range that maybe you didn't have at a different age in your life. And it seems like, from what I can tell, he has really worked to continue to maintain quite a range. And it's something you have to kind of keep working at. I've been singing more lately. I hadn't been singing for a while, and like you forget, like, oh yeah, that oh that's right, yeah, that one, oh yeah, that one, I gotta, you know, it takes a little extra effort to keep yourself in vocal shape as well as just the physical shape that you must be.
It's amazing how many things we do that, like, you need to do them regularly for you to be good at them. You know, I just started taking a French class again. I don't know if I told you about this, but
Well, you told me.
my first, what was that?
I said you told me, maybe not the audience, but yes.
Well, anyway,
everybody, Mel's taking a French class.
It's been a long time since I've taken a French class, and the first day I'm listening to things, and I actually had no problem really understanding most of what was being said, but I could hear when I spoke like just 8 million mistakes because it had been so long since I'd had to speak in French. So, you know, if you're going to sing, and particularly if you're going to sing and hit all of those high notes, you're going to have to practice a lot. I did notice when I was closer, like when I was closer the second night, I had an excellent view of the stage, and I saw that Russell really had he just had like a shit ton of water up there. And I have heard him say that one of the things he really tries to do is keep his vocal cords hydrated, which I'm sure is very important for hitting some of those notes.
Yeah, actually you have a we used to joke as singers, phlegm is your friend, but not too much phlegm, because your vocal folds actually like bang against each other and they have a light coating of mucus on them. And so when you get hoarse or when you lose part of your voice, either the folds are swollen or the mucus might, you know, not be the right consistency. And so you're not getting that like vibration that you would normally get. And like I said, over time that changes. And, you know, people who are, some singers continue to work to either maintain their original range and add to it, or just go with the new range. So the fact that he's, anyway, they're both wonderful musicians, and you can tell that they've really continued to hone their art and do what they need to do to make beautiful music.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was great seeing them. So they did, I predict, as well. So they kind of did like a slew of 80s, and then they moved into like they did sort of mix it up among eras. And one thing I'm gonna say that may be a bit controversial, I believe it's a topic for discussion, Amy, audience. So this was sort of a point that came up in the Sparks Brothers documentary again and again, was that these guys do not just do a greatest hits concert, but this was kind of a greatest hits concert. However, what I would say was that it's not like when you go see the Rolling Stones and they do like all of their great hits from 1965. They did that, but they really took that playlist directly from the Sparks Brothers. So you could argue that it is also a totally new set, because they're kind of taking it from something they've done recently. And I would suspect, I mean, who knows? I'm not the band. I don't know what creative direction they want to go into, but I suspect the next time we see them on tour, if we're fortunate enough to do so, they will have a completely different set list. But they really had all eras. So they had stuff from Little Beethoven. They did I Married Myself, which was quite a lot of fun. Can I spoil it for you or not?
Oh, please, should I? I don't care about spoilers.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the gimmick that I suspect we will see in Chicago is Russell had a little mirror. So he, at the "Hey baby, how you doing?" he's looking at himself. That was pretty fun. And I will also tell you that on night 2, right before they did I Married Myself, someone in the audience shouted out, "We love you, Russell!" And then a couple minutes later, more people shouted out, "We love you, Ron!" It was, I think there are a lot of, there are people who've taken sides, and they take it very seriously. I say, I love you both, guys. You're both geniuses, and you both impress me in many ways. So anyway, they did that. We had a little bit of Ron singing, which was great. He sang Shopping Mall of Love, which, well, he did, he does, I don't actually know it that well either. And I know this is gonna, I know there are people who are listening who are going to be like, it's from this album, but I actually don't know what album it's from. It is from one of the 80s albums though. It could be Sparks in Outer Place or Outer Space or Cool Places.
I was listening to, speaking of his singing, I was listening to Gratuitous Sax, and the version that I was listening to had a song in there called Mid-Atlantic.
Yes, and he does a version of it.
And I would, when it came on, I was like kind of listening, and I was working, and I was like, this is not Russell singing. Who is this? And I looked, and I was like, again, that's just quick detour for a second.
No, detour.
Concert. I was really struck listening to that, because I was like, wow, this whole song has a real like Belle and Sebastian's like.
It does. I agree with that.
He's got, just a different sounding voice around.
He really does.
And just the instrumentation, it was again one of those many instances when you listen to a Sparks song where you're kind of taken off into a totally different time period, and it's really fun to, I don't know, I really enjoy that about that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I have been listening this week to The Seduction of Ingmar Bergman, which I gotta say, I'm just gonna tell you that there's one particular song on there that I really enjoy, and I went to YouTube and somebody had written the comment, because I think there were only like 7 likes or something. Someone had written the comment, or no, there were 9. Someone had written the comment, how can there be only 9 fans of English Swedish rock opera? I weep for this country. And I commented 10 now. 10. Now there's 10. I'm counting. 10. But anyway,
we need to include the link then.
It's really good. And Amy, I recommend that you listen on YouTube to the English version first, so you can really get the whole story. Then after that, you can go to your streaming service of choice and just do the Swedish version, and you're good. But that comment really made me laugh. My point is this: Ron has a singing part in the musical, and it's perfect for his role, is what I will say, because his voice is, obviously, it's not as developed as Russell's. It's a lot softer. Yeah. Anyway, so he did that. They did another song from Annette. They did We Love Each Other So Much. And Russell was wearing these like very bright chartreuse pants, which when they did We Love Each Other So Much, they changed like the little smoky background to sort of like a aquamarine background. And I thought, oh my gosh, this looks like the cover of Annette. Clever. But that was really good. They did Never Turn Your Back on Mother Earth, which was really great.
That's every time I hear that song, I go like, God damn it, like human race, because that was written in what, 75, 76, I don't remember when.
74. It's on Propaganda. So it was written in 1973 or 74, or around that period.
Relevant song.
Yes.
Especially now, because like, you know what? Now Mother Earth, we're getting more floods. Fucking snowed in Turkey this year.
Well, I'll admit I was unfaithful, but from now I'll be more faithful. I mean, what a great line. That is just like a fantastic line. But I will say, I wrote in my notes many, many, many times, how does Russell do it? I wrote that down many times, because all of the songs, I haven't told you the whole set list. I don't think we're going to talk about every single song, but they had such a range from their really early stuff to their later stuff. And there were a few songs, and not only could Russell hit all those notes, and yes, you could hear that his voice had changed with time, but there were a few where his voice sounded so similar to the way it sounds on that recording that he did, 30 decades ago, or 30, the Sparkles.
I know, I'm halfway through
It's
and
kicking in.
I'm feeling a bit merry, as they might say.
I'm feeling a bit merry. You know, it's better than feeling tired and emotional. Insert your favorite British euphemism for drunkenness below. But anyway, yes, here's one of my notes for Never Turn Your Back on Mother. How in fuck can Russell still hit those notes? That's what I wrote. Amateur hour. How does Russell fucking do it? These are my notes.
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing that because I was listening to the that live performance from '74 of that. I think when it was like right after like the women had like the audience had called on stage.
You can actually go and watch that same performance live and watch girls throw themselves at Ron and Russell if you wish.
And what I'm really interested in hearing, and look, again, they are just so musically amazing that I'm so excited to hear him sing it live. But in that performance, you know, sometimes when you're doing something live, you don't hit all the notes. Sometimes you have to drop a note an octave, or you have to mark a note, meaning that you're not singing it at full volume because you know you have another like hour of singing after this. So I'm sure he must just knows his voice and knows the tips and the tricks to get through a 2-hour block of singing pretty broad music, which is why I do often, not that he's singing like a fully classical singer, but he is singing like a classical singer has to sing 2 straight hours in a show. They have to be able to manage what they're doing, and it's such a skill set, and it's so exciting to hear somebody do it. I'm really looking forward to it.
Which is interesting, Amy, because of course you have a background in opera. And I mean, you know me, I'm not so interested in opera. I like a few. I like a bit of Carmen. I like, a little bit of that, but I'm probably not going to kick back with some opera. But certainly the Mail brothers, certainly Ron is an opera fan. I feel like you can hear that in the music. I feel like you really can.
Wonderful, just not even opera, just classical references or Bulgarian,
absolutely, yes. But I felt that when I was watching, when I was seeing this, just that the kind of the operatic feel to all of the music. But yes, they kind of built us to their classics. They did My Way towards the end, which was a great one. I feel like there were a couple really great moments for me. One was they played Wonder Girl, which was so exciting because my dad now loves that song. And so I had actually texted him because I heard it in the gift shop. And then they played it. And I was like, oh my God, Dad, they played Wonder Girl. I can't believe it.
That's awesome.
But then they followed that up with Stravinsky's Only Hit, which I believe is on A Steady Drip, Drip, Drip. And I just loved the idea of playing their very first single, well, their first one that actually got radio airplay, and then playing something from their most recent album. I just, chef's kiss. Loved it. And of course, because it's Sparks, it worked. But yeah, they kind of built us. So that was a great moment. Another great moment was when they played music that you can dance to. I was like, holy shit, you're kidding. You're actually playing this. And that was when I feel like in night 1, I knew I had to go for night 2 because like I just really wanted to get down, but I was up in the terrace. And so I had to just, resign myself to chair dancing. But I could see up in the fabulous seats, it was quite a party and I needed to be there. And then the next night I was there. So that was
again. I think back to you should hear the shit I was texting her the next day. So what if you have to work tomorrow? You're gonna have to work every day and the day after and the day after that. How many more days are you gonna get to sing Sparks?
Exactly. And I live in Los Angeles. I mean, come on. The second night I actually didn't leave till 7 because I knew when their show was going to be. And so I thought, great, I'll let some of this traffic die down. I'll have dinner with my husband, then I'll head out. I know where to park now. I'll park there. And then by the time I'm through everything, I'll be slipping right into the show. And I it's exactly what happened. I got through everything really fast. I sat down 15 minutes before they started. And then I left right at the end of the encore because it was a beautiful, I think Ron said some really lovely things that I missed, just about how meaningful this was to them, which I'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, then I was home like that, which if you live in LA, that's really important. So
Middle-aged ladies concert.
middle-aged ladies concert. Can I get home fast? But anyway, so then My Way was another really great one.
Oh,
They ended kind of the official with This Town, and then Amateur Hour. I loved that they ended with Amateur Hour. I actually prefer Amateur Hour to This Town Ain't Big. This time it's like a very complicated dress. Like, it's beautiful, but it's hard to put on. It's heavy. We're like, Amateur Hour, I can just rock out. And this is where I'm going to give it up to their band, because their band, they were just as tight as their 1974 band. Like, if you listen to the end of Amateur Hour, there's some really great like ending guitar moments, and this band got those. Like,
wonderful.
Just beautiful. They had a great backing band. I'm sorry I cut you off.
Things I really enjoy about what I haven't listened to their whole like catalog of music yet, but certainly especially music from that time. But I think all of the songs I've heard, they have really nice moments for all of the instruments. There's some really nice moments where the drum, really can pick up and do a transition into a new time signature, or like great guitar stuff. They little bass solos. It's like, I don't know. They obviously love music, and they want to also highlight the other musicians that are
fun
with them.
And I think this is a good time to talk about the musicians. Unfortunately, I do not know all of their names, but I will just say that their band is not only adorable, like they are just adorable, cute little musicians, but they were so good. And let me tell you about something that I just thought was so sweet. So they introduced the band, then Russell introduced Ron, and of course everybody was like, woo, yay, Ron, you're a genius. But what was adorable to me was, first of all, they looked so proud of their band, especially Ron. Ron looked like proud papa with his band. But then when Ron was sort of like going in front to sort of take his accolades, the band did this really cute, like, we're not worthy, bow down. Like, they actually all went like this. They went like, we're not worthy.
That's awesome.
Oh my God. But then I thought to myself, because their musicians all look like they're probably in their 20s and 30s. So to learn from someone who's so talented, who's been doing this for 5 decades, it must just be an opportunity of a lifetime. I mean, you're just so fortunate to be able to work with an artist who's got that much experience, who can show you so much. So it's funny because I don't know if you've heard this, like Brian May from Queen once auditioned for Sparks back in the 70s, and they're like, well, I guess he made the better decision, like, to go with Queen. So I'm sure as a working musician, like, of course you want something that is going to bring you fame and success. And you may or may not get that backing someone like Sparks, but you're getting so much education, I'm sure. So I thought that was amazing. And so now I want to talk to you a little bit about the end of the show. So their encores were Suburban Homeboy. I don't know. Do you know that one? Yeah. And actually Ron took some of the lyrics, which was great. So, and he did a great job with those. And then they closed with All That, which was a perfect one to end with.
It is, because it's like a moderate tempo. It's got a lot of lyrics. People can hold their cell phones up,
which they did, and I want to talk about that.
Anymore.
Oh, I had one. I always have one. You never know. You never know, Amy, you never know. I always have one.
My vape's charged.
My vape is fully charged. I'm ready to go. But So, the last two of the main show were This Town and Amateur Hour. Then everyone was like, Sparks, 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 come back. People did hold up their phones. I did actually pull up my lighter for night one for a minute just to, kick it old school. But then night two, people left their phones up. They left them up for Suburban Homeboy, and then more people put them up during all that. And this is sort of what I mean about being a little closer, that you could just see the emotion. So like that, me saying that Ron seems so proud of the band, that was from night two, that I could see that. And also, like, I am a pretty good read of people's emotional states. It is actually something that I'm just pretty good at. I'm not trying to brag. It is a useful skill. I could see from where I was sitting on night two that like Russell was clearly having a good time. Like once he got into it, he was having a good time, and he actually said like, hey, this is fun. And again, I think like night one, people are gonna do reviews. Like it's been a long time since you've done that. Like even if I know this from
show.
Yeah,
This has been a long time.
When you haven't done it for a while, even if you know that you can do it, you're still like, oh, I don't know. But what was I gonna say? So everybody put up their cell phones during all that, and they were just sort of moving them back and forth, and you could see that it was moving them to see that.
And people, I will say, when you're on stage in many venues, when the lights are on you, you can't really see much beyond like the first couple rows.
Yeah.
And so depending on, some places have more of a house lighting and you can see, but in general, you can't really see the audience very well. But to be able to see all of those little lights swaying back and forth, that must be wonderful. Yeah.
And actually, like, I just noticed that it almost looked like a lot of sparks. And one thing, this is a reason why I think Sparks is so special. Like, if you look at who likes them, who's obsessed with them, a lot of times you'll find out, like, it's somebody who's like a very successful writer or artist or musician or director. Like, I do think there's something about them that really influences people to go do something creative. I mean, that's why we're doing this. Yeah. And so to just kind of look at this circle of sparks, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And you could see they were looking at it. And then Russell said, wow, this is really beautiful. And I was like, oh God, this is such a moment. But this is kind of what I mean about that intimacy. This is why you always, and I actually did think to myself, I never want a bad seat at a show ever again. Like, I want to be, anytime I've been at a show that's like a very small venue or I've had better seats, it's always a better experience for reasons like this. So there you go. I finished, I snuck out right at the very end. And I guess after I snuck out, Ron came out to just say that this show really meant a lot to them. But I will just say I flew home on the Santa Monica freeway. The lights of LA were surrounding me. I played all that. Then I kind of went into Hippopotamus because I made a mistake and went a little too fast in my Sparks journey. I have to go back, but that is a really great album. And I was so filled with joy that I had seen that show and that I lived someplace where I could see something like that. And I love LA. All right, I've had, quite a bit of sparkling beverage.
Not much wine left.
And that, friends, was 2 nights at the Spark Show. And that's a wonderful thing, ladies and gentlemen. And I just want to bring it back to Edgar Wright for a minute, because remember I went to the Redwood Lounge? Yeah. Apparently, he went there after the show. Ah! I should have gone.
Oh, yay.
Yay.
Well, hey, very fun. I'm feeling a little tipsy right now, so I'm just going to wish you farewell. Thanks for listening, everyone. And
thank you so much for listening. You know what? It's always a hazard, Amy, on a show called Sparks and Sparkles, that someone may end up feeling a little tipsy by the end of it.
We suffer for our art.
It's true. And on that note, dear listeners, mwah, adieu.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, Morty, what do you got?
Yeah, Morty, what do you got?
Commercial. Take it.